Hello and welcome. In this explainer, we're going to slow things down a bit. We're going to explore a really simple elemental path to get away from all that mental noise and find a much calmer, more centered state of mind. So let's dive in. So let me ask you, does your mind just feel too loud lately? It's a feeling so many of us know, that constant internal chatter that just refuses to quit. You know, it's like having a radio stuck on in your head and you just can't find the off switch. Oh, yeah, this is it, isn't it? You get caught up in these endless loops. You're replaying something you said yesterday, you're spinning out on a dozen different what ifs about tomorrow, and you're second guessing every single decision. Honestly, it's exhausting, and it can really feel like you're completely stuck. So let's start by just naming this experience the noisy mind. It's a very real thing, this feeling of being kind of paralyzed by your own thoughts. The source for this whole explainer kicks off with this really powerful personal story. The author talks about a time when every single thought felt like a 5-alarm fire. Every little ping of worry, every nagging doubt, it was all treated like an emergency that needed to be handled right now. And that constant state of high alert, that's the engine that drives overthinking. But then, a really simple moment changed everything. And it wasn't some huge, dramatic epiphany. It was just a quiet encounter with the natural world, and it offered a totally new way of seeing things. So it all started after a sleepless night. The author walked outside, barefoot, and just felt the cool, damp grass under their feet. That's the element of earth, right? The ground didn't demand anything. It didn't ask for a solution. It just held them. It was a simple physical anchor in a total sea of mental chaos. And next came the element of air. Just by standing there, breathing in that crisp morning air, there was this sudden feeling of space, you know? Each breath created this little pocket of stillness, and that was enough to interrupt the frantic pace of all those thoughts. Then, a neighbor happened to light some incense. A thin little ribbon of smoke drifted by. And here's the element of fire, but in its gentlest form. It's not a destructive blaze, right? It's just a symbol of transformation, a little visual anchor for the attention to follow. And finally, water. The author watched a single drop of dew just slide down a leaf. And in that tiny moment, you can see both weight and release. A thought can be held for a moment, and then it can be let go. And this is the brilliant insight at the heart of it all. The problem wasn't that the thoughts were unsolvable. The real problem was treating them like they were a math equation in the first place. A racing mind doesn't need a solution. It needs to be soothed. Now, that's a beautiful story, but it does make you wonder, why does this work? I mean, what's really going on a deeper level when we connect with these simple elements to quiet down a noisy mind? Well, it turns out there are a few really key things happening. First, nature has these predictable rhythms, sunrise, seasons, even our own breath, and that helps regulate our own chaotic internal clock. Second, actually touching the ground or feeling a breeze, those are sensory cues that shift us out of our heads and back into our bodies. Third, when you focus on something simple like a flame or a leaf, your attention narrows, and that physically interrupts the thought loops. Fourth, these elements carry deep symbolic meaning for us. Earth is stability, water is release. And finally, connecting to this timeless wisdom helps restore a sense of trust in ourselves, a trust that overthinking completely erodes. Okay, so now that we get the why, let's get practical. How can you actually use this? This section is all about building your very own elemental toolbox. This right here, this is the single most important idea to grasp. You have to stop wrestling with your thoughts. It's a fight you're never going to win. Instead, you become more of a gentle conductor, guiding your attention towards something calmer, something more rhythmic. So here's your first tool for the element of earth. It's called the 60-second root. All you do is plant your feet, really feel the physical sensation of the ground beneath you, take one deep breath where the exhale is longer than the inhale, and then name 3 things you can physically feel. It's a super fast way to ground yourself when you feel your thoughts starting to spin out of control. Next up is air, and we're going to use a simple breathing technique called the 4-2-6 breath. You just breathe in for 4 counts, hold it gently for 2, and then breathe out for a slow count of 6. That longer exhale is the real key here. It actively signals to your nervous system that it's okay to calm down. Repeating this just 6 times can create a really noticeable shift. And our third tool for water is the release note. This is such a beautiful symbolic ritual. You just write down the thought that's stuck on repeat. Then you add the intention. I release what I can't control right now. And finally, you physically rinse your hands under cool water, just visualizing that thought washing right away. All right, so you've got the story, you've got the why, and you've got the tools. Now it's time to actually put it into practice. And don't think of this as homework. Think of it as your own personal lab activity, a small experiment in finding a little bit of calm. Here's how to do it. First, just pick one element that's calling to you. Then, set a specific time and a place. Maybe it's first thing in the morning by window. Define a tiny little ritual, like one of the tools we just talked about. End it with a powerful closing phrase, something like, I choose clarity over compulsion. And then just jot down one line about how you felt before and after. The goal here is simplicity and consistency, not perfection. And so we come back to this simple truth. The goal was never to win a fight against your own mind. It's to become a better guide for your own attention. So when that storm of thoughts starts to gather, you now have a compass, earth, air, water, to help steer yourself toward a calmer shore. So, as we close out this explainer, I'm going to leave you with this one question. Which element feels like the right starting place for you right now? Is it the grounding of earth, the space of air, or maybe the release of water? The choice itself, well, that's your very first step toward clarity.